The train rattled through the night, its unsteady sway and relentless mechanical hum a cruel mockery of any hope for sleep. I've never been one to drift off easily in such conditions. Every jolt, every screech of metal on tracks seemed to burrow into my bones, keeping me tethered to wakefulness. I watched, with a mix of envy and frustration, as other passengers melted into their seats, some snoring loudly, their bodies surrendering to exhaustion. Meanwhile, I was trapped in a cycle of discomfort, shifting in my stiff chair, chasing a fleeting moment of rest that refused to come. My neck ached, my legs cramped, and each time I closed my eyes, the train's rhythm would jolt me awake within minutes. By the time the overhead speaker crackled, announcing my stop, I hadn't managed more than a handful of 5-minute naps, each one leaving me more drained than the last. I stood, my body protesting as I stretched, trying to shake off the stiffness that had settled into my joints. Grabbing my bag, I glanced around the carriage and froze. It was empty. Not a single soul remained. Not the snoring man from earlier. Not the woman who'd been reading a book. Not even the conductor who'd checked my ticket hours ago. Just me, alone in a hollow, dimly lit shell of a train car. I'd taken late-night trains before, but never one this desolate. Was this normal? I told myself. It must be. Midnight trains in rural areas weren't exactly bustling with life. Still, the silence felt heavy, almost oppressive, as if the carriage itself was holding its breath. Stepping onto the platform, the cold hit me like a physical force. The air was sharp, biting at my skin, a stark contrast to the stuffy warmth of the train. My breath fogged in front of me, curling in the dim glow of the station's flickering lights. The platform was as empty as the carriage. No passengers, no staff, no signs of life. The station itself seemed frozen in time, its cracked tiles and faded signs untouched by the modern world. I shivered, pulling my jacket tighter, and started toward the exit, my footsteps echoing in the stillness. Then I saw him, a lone station worker standing a few meters away, just beyond the train's open door. He stood rigid, his face half-shadowed, watching me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. I assumed he was there to monitor passengers, but the thought felt hollow. Why would anyone need to stand guard at a station this deserted, at this hour? Our eyes met for a brief moment, and I offered a hesitant nod, but he didn't respond. Instead, his gaze seemed to bore through me, as if he was waiting for something, expecting something. My attention drifted past him, drawn to the platform across the tracks. That's when I saw them. 7 women, standing shoulder to shoulder, their backs to me. They faced the empty tracks where no train stood and none was due for at least an hour. Their silhouettes were stark against the faint glow of the platform's lights. Some wore school uniforms, their pleated skirts swaying slightly in the breeze. Others were dressed in office attire, blouses and pencil skirts, or casual jeans and sweaters. They stood in perfect alignment, unmoving, their stillness unnatural, like statues carved from the night itself. I counted them, 7, each one distinct, yet somehow part of a single, eerie whole. I couldn't see their faces, but I felt their presence, heavy and suffocating. It was as if their eyes were on me, watching from some unseen angle, their gaze piercing through the darkness. My heart began to pound, my hands tightening around the handle of my bag until my knuckles ached. Sweat beaded on my palms, cold and clammy, despite the chill in the air. I tore my eyes away, glancing up at the station's timetable. The next train wasn't due for another hour. There was no reason for anyone to be standing there. No logical explanation for their presence, unless the rumors I'd read online before this trip came rushing back, each word etched into my memory. This station, nestled in a quiet, rural town, had a dark history. Years ago, a series of murders had shaken the community. 8 young women, all killed in a brutal string of attacks. The stories varied, but the most persistent one claimed the killer was a traveler, an outsider who'd passed through, leaving death in his wake. After the 8th murder, he'd supposedly fled by train, vanishing into the night. But the victims, the legend said, never left. Their spirits lingered on the platform, watching every traveler who passed through, searching for their killer. They could sense guilt, fear, or shame in the eyes of those who saw them, and through that, they hunted for justice. The station worker's presence suddenly made sense. He wasn't just a guard, he was a sentinel, standing between the living and something far darker. His eyes flicked toward me again, and though he said nothing, his expression seemed to urge me to move, to leave this place before something stirred. I didn't need convincing. My legs felt unsteady, but I forced myself to walk, my bag bumping against my side as I hurried toward the exit. The fog outside was thick, curling around the station like a living thing, swallowing the world beyond. It felt like stepping into another reality, one where the rules of the world I knew no longer applied. The station's lights faded behind me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that those 7 women were still watching, their unseen eyes following my every step. Outside, a single taxi waited, its engine idling in the misty darkness. The driver was slumped in his seat, his head tilted back, on the verge of sleep. I tapped on the window, startling him awake, and gave him my destination. He yawned, rubbing his eyes, and gestured for me to get in. As I settled into the back seat, the warmth of the car felt like a small mercy, but my nerves were still frayed. The image of those women lingered. Their silent presence burned into my mind. I couldn't help myself. I needed to talk, to ground myself in something real. So, as the driver pulled onto the empty road, I mentioned the station's legend, describing what I'd seen on the platform. He perked up, his tiredness fading as a strange glint entered his eyes. Through the rearview mirror, I caught his gaze, sharp and knowing, as if he'd heard this story 1,000 times. He told me there was another version of the tale, one less known, but far more unsettling. I leaned forward, eager to hear it, though a part of me dreaded what he might say. He spoke of a night, much like this one, when another cabbie had been waiting outside the station. It was late, the kind of hour when the world feels abandoned. The driver had been alone, idling in his car, hoping for a fare. Out of nowhere, a woman emerged from the station's entrance, her figure appearing as if conjured from the shadows. She carried nothing, no bag, no coat, just her pale, ghostly form. The driver's first instinct was to offer her a ride, but something stopped him. There'd been no train, no sound of an engine or screech of brakes. The last train had passed an hour earlier, and the next wasn't due for another 20 minutes. So where had she come from? Her face was ashen, her eyes hollow. And when the driver finally mustered the courage to ask if she needed a ride, she turned to him. Her gaze was like ice, cutting through him, and she spoke 3 words that turned his blood cold. "It's not you." Then, without another word, she turned and walked back into the station, vanishing into the darkness. The driver sat there, frozen, his body refusing to move, his mind racing to make sense of her words. He stayed until dawn, but she never reappeared. The driver's voice grew quieter as he explained the twist. In this version, the killer wasn't a traveler, but a cabbie, someone who used his job to prey on women, picking them up and killing them in the dead of night. That woman's spirit, he said, was searching for the man who'd taken her life, wandering the station, confronting every driver she encountered. I swallowed hard, my mind spinning. The legend spoke of 8 victims, but I'd only seen 7 women on the platform. The math didn't add up. Where was the 8th? As the car rolled through the fog, the driver's tone shifted, becoming almost too casual. He remarked that our conversation was getting too creepy, and then he said something that made my heart stop. He mentioned my girlfriend, saying she hadn't spoken a word, as if scared silent by the story. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. I was alone in the back seat, or at least I thought I was. My eyes darted to the seat beside me, but there was nothing, just empty leather. Yet the driver kept talking, his voice light, urging her to lift her head, insisting she had nothing to fear. His words hung in the air, and then his voice faltered, as if he'd seen something that choked the sound from his throat. The car seemed to grow colder, the air thick with a presence I couldn't see but could feel, heavy and suffocating, like a weight pressing on my chest. Then, from the darkness beside me, a voice emerged, low, anguished, and filled with a rage that seemed to echo from beyond the grave. 2 words spoken with chilling finality. "It's you." The world outside the car blurred, the fog swallowing the road ahead. I couldn't see the driver's face, but I knew he'd seen something, someone beside me. The 8th victim, the one missing from the platform, had found her killer. And I, trapped in the back seat, was caught in the moment her justice came. The story doesn't end with answers. I don't know what the driver saw in that rearview mirror, or what became of him after that night. The fog seemed to close in, and my memory of the ride blurs into fragments. Flashes of headlights, the hum of the engine, and that voice lingering in the air. What I do know is this: some places hold on to their pain, their loss, their rage. That station, with its empty platforms and silent spirits, is one of them. And if you ever find yourself there, alone in the dead of night, be careful what you see, because they're watching, always watching.